Here today with Mike Graham, one of the most popular presenters at Talk Radio. By one of this country's best media presenters, Talk Radio's Julia Hartley-Brewer. By Isabel Oakeshott, one of the top political journalists and commentators in this country. The Brexit hero and Conservative MP Nigel Evans. With Toby Young, the founder of the Free Speech Union. Well, yes. Annunziata Rees-Mogg, former Conservative MEP.
So thanks for coming on the show, Madeline.
Hello Tom, welcome to the channel.
Hi, great to be here.
Now we're joined by the one and only Nigel Farage. How are you, Nigel?
Fine, thanks, Mike. Good, yeah.
Some of us are moving on. Not everybody's apparently accepting the result. Right, let's talk about Greta Thunberg. The EU member states attacked the Commission and Germany are now in trouble. If we need more nurses, we will bring more nurses. If we don't need low-skilled workers, we won't bring low-skilled workers. So I'm currently on Edgware Road and this place is absolutely crazy. I mentioned Owen Jones having this weird meltdown for absolutely no reason.
They don't know what's about to come. This building is about to cause chaos again.
Like one of these, but, well, these are actual real flags, but the European Union flag, one of those fake flags. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 2CTV and another evening live stream. We have some other updates for you guys in regards to what's going on in the Middle East. Because Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian state and the national authority, seems to be all over the place. And in this video, in this live stream, we're going to explain what is going on in his head, if we have to guess, and of course get your reaction as usual. Let's go to the updates. Hello to everybody in the live chat. We're going to get your reactions in a minute, but this is actually about the fact that Macron went to the Middle East and he's been hanging around with Mahmoud Abbas and all the others, and Abbas, who's come out to say we are not like Hamas, we are different, those nutters have gone too far. He's also facing some challenges in the West Bank from the Palestinian side, the so-called civilians. That's one other area that we have to talk about in this video. But he also has some demands. So this is quite interesting. Things could change rapidly in the Middle East, but not because of Mahmoud Abbas, because I don't think he's going to last that long, unfortunately. So, and by the way, let's not forget, this guy, he's like the Ken Livingstone of Palestine. Think about that. Ken Livingstone of Palestine. He's a little bit cuckoo as well. But right now, he's come out to, obviously, as we've said over the last few days, he's repeatedly said that the actions of Hamas do not represent Palestinians, and he's also demanded the immediate release of all hostages from Hamas to make sure people know that the West Bank is not involved. He's terrified, basically, of what the West could do and what Israel could do in the West Bank. So he's ensured. That's why he also invited Macron to go there, saying, can you just come just for a photo op? We do some handshaking, and I'm going to say Hamas should release the hostages, but I'm also going to say Israel should look after the civilians, which makes sense. So far, it's diplomacy. But it kind of escalates. So Mahmoud Abbas has now come out to say, we would agree to rule over Gaza, because Israel has said, we are going to go wipe out Hamas. But Israel don't want to take over Gaza. They said that's just your place. And obviously, if Hamas gets eliminated, who's going to rule over it? So they've said, Mahmoud Abbas and obviously the National Authority, Palestine, can you guys go and rule over Gaza again? And Mahmoud Abbas said, yeah, sure, if you want us to do it, if we talk about the two-state solution. That's the same thing that Israel has been talking about for some time now. Yeah, let's just say some time. A long time. But does he actually have the support of the people? Considering the last few days, it's been absolutely chaotic in the West Bank. Do you know why? Because of all the footage that we've seen. And by the way, before I show you this, we also have the video, the speech that Mahmoud Abbas made attacking Hamas. But first, let's show you what's going on in the West Bank, because there are massive protests against Mahmoud Abbas. not going too well. So this is also not a new thing. Everything's basically his authority has been undermined anyway. There's still a lot of extremists, let's just say, who live in the West Bank. There are some, let's just call them moderate or secular Palestinians who live in the West Bank, and they want peace as well. But there's still a lot of them who support Hamas. But somehow they live in the West Bank instead of living in Gaza, because they know what's going to happen if they go to Gaza. So they've also, and Mahmoud Abbas has not been the best president, to be very generous in regards to the review of his premiership. So he's getting attacked from all sides. Nobody trusts him. But having said all that, let's be objective. He says the right things at times. He also lies a lot. But in this case, he's come out, read the subtitles, because he's going to destroy Hamas and the leadership in Gaza.
وعندما حصل العدوان قالوا في غزة وغيرها وفي الخارج لو ذهبت غزة ومحقت غزة لا يهمهم أن تمحق غزة. المهم أن تبقى حركة حماس موجودة. قالوا هذا قاله هنية وقاله مشعل. لا يهمنا ماذا يحصل. ثم قال مشعل أكثر من هذا إن الذي يجري في غزة شيء بسيط لا يؤثر علينا. ثم خرجوا ليقولوا الحركة بعافية وبخير، وهناك آلاف الشهداء من أبناء الشعب، آلاف الجرحى من أبناء الشعب، عشرات الألوف من البيوت المهدومة. إلى اليوم 100,000 فلسطيني في قطاع غزة يعيشون بالعراء لأنهم لا يجدون مسكنا لهم. لكن حركة حماس بخير. حركة حماس كانت تختبئ تحت الأقبية. قيادة حركة حماس، وأقولها للمرة الأولى، هربت إلى سيناء بسيارات الإسعاف وتركت شعبها يذبح ثم يقولون نحن قاومنا.
Yeah, it's not going to last that long. So he's absolutely spot on, by the way. The summary of it, in case you didn't read the subtitles, his attack on Hamas is quite clear. Saying he's telling the truth that the Hamas leadership, Haniyeh especially, they don't care about civilians in Gaza. They don't even care about Gaza itself. It's part of the plan. It's part of the mission. And obviously they also don't really care about the life on this planet. So they are obsessed with getting their 72 virgins. But the problem with that is that we have clarified we don't know what gender they're going to be. So if Haniyeh, for example, loses his life and this guy goes to heaven and they say, here you go, 72 virgins, and they're all men, he's not going to be happy about it. But that aside, going back to the logical problem in this is that, as Mahmoud Abbas said, when he's attacking Hamas, he's saying they only care about the Hamas movement or the cause instead of actual territory. He's right. They don't care about territory. Their problem is not territory. Their problem is ideological. And they will not stop until we're all gone, all converted to their faith. So that's what we're dealing with right now. And he's right about his assessment. But as I said, he's got problems. He doesn't really have the support of the people anymore. And he's also been proven a liar. So we know that as well. And Israel, if Macron is going to go to, well, he's gone to Palestine to deal with all this stuff, they also have to consider what's going on in Syria. Just before we went live, 10 minutes ago, we heard that Syria, once again, causing chaos because they've officially sent rockets into Israel, towards Israel, right? Syria is getting involved. Now, the justification from the mainstream media side is that, well, Israel attacked Syria first. You do realize what's been happening for the past 2 weeks. What Hezbollah are doing from the territories of Lebanon and Syria. Iran have been poking the bear from the Syrian borders, and now Israel decided to retaliate, which is normal, self-defense, and now Syria are saying, Israel attacked first, we're going to send our rockets. What? And then somehow people in the West keep falling for this lie. It's just so lazy at this point. Just because the BBC says something doesn't mean you have to believe the BBC. So that's happening with Syria. That's the current situation with that. But of course, Macron's visit to Mahmoud Abbas's headquarters, one main issue is about the fact that, as we said, he's decided to attack Hamas, saying, we got nothing to do with what's going on in Gaza. But he had to also, because he's scared of his own civilians and his citizens, he said, we have to tell Israel to look after civilians, to stop the airstrikes. Makes sense. But he's also said, if you want us to rule over Gaza, we will. Because obviously, as I said, Israel don't want Gaza. They don't want any of these territories. They said, well, this is not ours. We don't want trouble. So they've said, we're going to wipe out Hamas. What are you going to do? The rest is not really our problem, according to Israel. So Macron and the international community are getting ready, saying Mahmoud Abbas and the national authority in Palestine, can you guys get ready to rule over Gaza again? And he said, yeah, we'll do it. But if Israel starts talking about the two-state solution, so everything that Israel offered to you guys for the past few decades, especially for the last few years, including the two-state solutions, including the fact that you could have Gaza, could have all this, and you guys said no, from Arafat and all the other nutters. And now somehow you're saying, taking the moral high ground, saying, well, we're going to start the conversation if Israel wants to join. What? So obviously there've been so many complications, and to be objective, both sides messed up. Both sides made wrong policy decisions throughout the last few decades. I'm not talking about Hamas, because they're a bunch of nutters. I'm talking about the actual Palestinian Authority and of course the Israeli government. At times there have been messed up situations. The conflict in the 60s and the conflict in the 70s, basically every decade, the Arab side caused chaos, but Israel went in too hard, and then they gave away a lot of territory again. And then they started building settlements, and they called the settlements from the Arab side to make it sound even worse. And they continued, right? And then there are individuals who live there. There are literally, in residential areas, there are Jews who live there. And then the Palestinians, or Hamas side, the propaganda came out and said, they had the mandate from the Israeli government. No, they were just living there. And somehow it's the fault of the Jews for living in the area. Nothing to do with the individual civilians. Whether you're an Arab or a Jew or whatever you are. And that's why those living in Israel, regardless of heritage or religion, they can still live among each other. But of course, you can't have that in the other parts, because it's just too complicated right now. You cannot have peace as long as two things are involved. One is the vested interest of the globalists involved, who want to play all sides. One day they're friends with Saudi, next day they're friends with Iran. That's one issue. Second problem is, you cannot have peace as long as one side sees the problem as a territorial issue and the other side sees it as a fundamental ideological issue. This clash is the main reason that it continues to go ahead. Even if you get rid of Hamas, you still have to deal with the PLO in general anyway. Now, Mahmoud Abbas is in trouble. He's losing support of every side because, again, he is the Ken Livingstone of the West Bank. The guy just goes around, talks nonsense, and the one time he said the right thing, they're coming for him. These are the footage that we have from the West Bank, the protests against Mahmoud Abbas. Yeah, it's going too well for him. I did see, by the way, there were some stupid French journalists on social media. You know how the one thing I love about some Western establishment people, whether they're American or British or French or whatever, because they're so out of touch about what happens around the world, when something is happening somewhere and it kind of they're involved, they think it's because of them. So Macron went to the West Bank, and they saw the protests, the French journalists, and they started writing articles saying, the protests are because of Macron, and Macron visited this. Obviously, when Macron was there, they were chanting against Macron as well. But they were already protesting a day before, 2 days before, a week before. They don't like Mahmoud Abbas right now. And then somehow you say, oh no, they protested when Macron... No, everything's about you, France. It's like we have to remind the American establishment, not everything is about you, America. Same thing. Not everything is about you, France. The French, the foreign policy from France, they're always ready for conflict. You think we're bad here in London? No. Paris is worse. Every single time NATO said there's some tension happening somewhere, the French are always ready. Should we go to war? They're always ready to pack up their bags saying, let's go, let's do a conflict. Like, if only they had that attitude in the 30s, everything could have been different instead of surrendering. But jokes aside, you have to be lighthearted because otherwise things get too depressing. Let's go to the live chat. And for those of you, if you joined late, I'm going to show you this speech from Mahmoud Abbas again. That he said when he attacked Hamas in Gaza. Real Mate said that clip that you showed, that looks like London to me. No, because the protest footage I showed you from the West Bank just now was peaceful. They were largely peaceful compared to London. Paranormal Channel X. Rishi Sunak is just getting ready to rescue Israel's asylum seekers. He's so kind. Well, he spent more money. He's sent more money to Hamas. What was it yesterday? 30 million, 20 million extra pounds on top of everything else. Funding the Hamas nutters. Yeah, what a lovely idea. And we started criticizing Joe Biden last week when he did it. But they're all as bad as each other. Oh, there were a couple of comments from earlier. There we go. Michael says, Macron and Trudeau are boyfriends. Not getting in there again. The libel laws in France are very strong. John Enoch Powell says, picking sides in this makes you as bad as they are. Well, the interesting thing about this is that if you simplify the world, sure, this makes sense. But in reality, if I'm sitting here right now and you guys are watching this, and there's a territorial dispute between Pakistan and India, right? Not just Kashmir, any other place. Some sort of new border issue. That's a territorial issue. None of our business. And it's probably best not to pick sides because what's the point? When the conflict is about good versus evil, one side wants to destroy humanity. The other side, for them, it's the territorial issue. And, sometimes they mess up. Sometimes they, make the wrong decisions, policy-wise or not. But one side, they just want to wipe you out. I think it's easy to pick sides. You don't have to pick the side of the Israeli government. You just have to pick a side of ordinary people who didn't choose to be attacked when they went to a musical festival. And then you're going to say, well, what about the civilians in Gaza? Well, they told them to move to the south. And then Hamas told them to stay at home. Some of them, they forced them to stay at home. The others, they brainwashed them. And we saw the footage. The dad who was saying, no, it's okay, that Hamas said just stay in. And then the rockets came in. How many times do they have to be warned that they're going to come and target the Hamas bases? How many times have Israel warned? How long has Israel been delaying this so-called invasion? It's over 2 weeks now, right? We're still waiting. Why are they waiting? Because I don't want the backlash from the international community. They could have gone in within 10 minutes on the second day. And then that would have been completely chaotic. And I probably would have been against it because the casualties and the collateral damage would have been absolutely crazy. You don't have to support the Israeli government to support the Jews and Christians and atheists and ordinary Muslims. Just be on the side of humanity. It's not difficult. Angel of Death, thank you so much for your super chat. Good evening from the British Empire. The old empire shall return with democratic reforms and it will improve the lives of the British. This is my new ideology. British Empire with democratic reforms. This is how we shall rule Britannia. I am very much in favor of that policy. You cannot just say, well, we will just pick a side. That is not really a side. I don't know what that means. Firstly, we're not government. So when we were taking sides, we're just simply saying, okay, I'm against that side. If we were in government, if we were foreign office, that would have been a whole different conversation. You can't really have these sort of lame-term conversations there. Taking sides, British people got killed too. But let's not forget, as I've been reporting the last few days, for those who say, including that John Enoch Powell guy, there we go. That makes zero sense, Maya, but thanks for the reply. Good reminder. You said earlier we shouldn't take sides. British people lost their lives as well. And as I always remind people, going back to the Roman Empire, what was the Roman Empire's policy? If you lay a finger on a citizen of Rome, even if it's across the globe, The Roman Empire, Rome will come and destroy you. All of you. We don't have to go full on Rome because it's probably not a good idea. But we must defend ourselves. We must defend our values and our citizens. We are under attack. British citizens lost their lives over there. British citizens are under attack here. The older guy who got attacked and lost his life last week by the Islamists in the UK. How many times, Christopher, how many times do we have to get attacked for this guy to say, okay, maybe we should defend ourselves and actually pick the side that is good versus evil? Nothing to do with Netanyahu and nothing to do with the Israeli government. This is a war against humanity that they've started centuries ago. They haven't stopped. They've just become more powerful. They're going to start with the Jews, then they're going to go to the Vatican, they're going to come to the West, and everywhere. That's the plan. I mean, they're not going to succeed, but you cannot be complacent about this. Right, let's go back to the live chat. Actually, for those if you just joined, let's do a reminder of what you missed, because the speech that we have obviously from Mahmoud Abbas, and he's made these speeches before. You know, this has been the tone when he's angry. The attack on Hamas in Gaza is a clear message that I'm in trouble if I want to survive in the West Bank, because again, a lot of people are protesting. I need to gain the support of the international community as well as Netanyahu in Israel. So he's come out to try to do carrots and sticks. So he's doing the stick by saying, Israel, you should look after civilians. Cool. Carrot. We're not like Hamas, and Hamas needs to release the hostages. And now he's gone to say that they expose the truth about Hamas leadership, that they don't care about civilians and they don't care about Gaza itself. Read the subtitles. This is a speech from Mahmoud Abbas.
وعندما حصل العدوان قالوا في غزة وغيرها وفي الخارج لو ذهبت غزة ومحقت غزة لا يهمهم أن تمحق غزة. المهم أن تبقى حركة حماس موجودة. قالوا هذا قاله هنية وقاله مشعل. لا يهمنا ماذا يحصل. ثم قال مشعل أكثر من هذا، إن الذي يجري في غزة شيء بسيط لا يؤثر علينا. ثم خرجوا ليقولوا الحركة بعافية وبخير، وهناك آلاف الشهداء من أبناء الشعب، آلاف الجرحى من أبناء الشعب، عشرات الألوف من البيوت المهدومة. إلى اليوم 100,000 فلسطيني في قطاع غزة يعيشون بالعراء لأنهم لا يجدون مسكنا لهم. لكن حركة حماس بخير. حركة حماس كانت تختبئ تحت الأقبية. قيادة حركة حماس، وأقولها للمرة الأولى، هربت إلى سيناء بسيارات الإسعاف وتركت شعبها يذبح ثم يقولون نحن قاومنا.
So that was for those of you who joined the live stream late. Let's not forget, by the way, if you couldn't read the subtitle, if you were somehow just listening on a podcast rather than just actually watching the video, the gist of it was that, as I said, he basically mentioned that the Hamas leadership, they're a bunch of animals who don't care about civilians in Gaza. They don't even care about the territory of Gaza. And even if Gaza gets erased, then they will just continue with their ideological battle. For them, it's about the movement, not about territory. And that's why he wants to differentiate his side and the national authority to say, our dispute is territory. And now he's finally talking about the two-state solution. I mean, seriously, after all this time, now we want to talk about that. So that's Mahmoud Abbas. But just a reminder, and the other stuff that's been happening today, some good news. Do you want to hear some good news? Happy news? Are you ready for some happy news? Yes. Nicola Sturgeon has passed her driving license. I just saw a comment reminding me, because I did a Twitter post there. There we go. Chill pill. Congratulations, Nicola Sturgeon, on passing your driving test. So that happened earlier today, and I think Nicola Sturgeon, should celebrate by buying herself a camper van. I think that's a good idea. I think she needs to get a camper van and just go around, travel around the world. It'll be lovely. So congratulations, Nicola Sturgeon. And we have another comment, Mahmoud Abbas. Thank you for the music. Oh no, what are we doing? So the one good thing about this channel and the community that we have and you guys in the live chat, even with the darkest topics, the most chaotic situations, we will still keep the British sense of humor. Thank God for Britannia and the British sense of humor. And people forget, the new generations, whether it's the millennials or the young generation X and now baby zoomers, generation Z, who don't have a sense of humor, who get so sensitive about everything, and they always say, if you make a joke about Titanic, they say, oh, it's too soon. They forget, well, they weren't even there. But back in the 30s and the 40s, one of the ways that the Brits were able to continue and carry on, keep calm and carry on, was using humor. There were a lot of jokes in terms of on TV and radio and everywhere else within communities, joking about the National Socialists, joking about Adolf and all the other nutters. They were able to do that in order to keep calm and carry on, to make sure they will actually don't get too depressed about life. Now compare that to other cultures who just are ready to be miserable, are always ready to mourn. That includes Shias. And actually at times Sunnis, but Shia, the Shia side of Islam, they're always ready to mourn. They're always ready to cry for no reason. So that's the difference in terms of cultures. Let's see what we have. Let's go to the live chat. Oh yeah, Melina talks about Nicola Sturgeon. She will soon have 20 miles per hour speed limit there then. Yep, I think now that Nicola Sturgeon is driving, we should have that. Ragnar says, can she drive the 140,000 quid camper van? Not anymore, the police has that one. She passed by mostly turning left. That's the comment of the evening. You have won the competition. I don't know what the competition was, but you won it. There's no prize, but you won it. All right, let's go back to the main point. Elizabeth Meyer, each day you get more and more professional. I'm not sure about that. I've noticed this year how professional your channel has become. Well done. Well, thank you very much. Now people are going to accuse me of paying you to send this comment again. But no, I really appreciate this. Let's quickly go back. There's a couple of other things without actually repeating what we already said, because a lot of you joined late. But it's not about that. It's about going back to the situation in the West Bank, especially for this idiot, Mahmoud Abbas. Because we had, obviously, when you have Macron to be there, and there was another clip that I'll find and I'll post it tomorrow. It was a very uncomfortable situation where Macron was sitting and Mahmoud Abbas was talking to the journalists, and he had to be tough to say, hey, Israel need to be looking after the civilians. You know, they shouldn't really hit the civilians, which is fair enough. You know, it's a good advice, right? And but Macron was so uncomfortable sitting there, but he knew what was going to come. Because Mahmoud Abbas was doing carrots and sticks, good cop and bad cop himself, which is very stupid. Because he also came out and attacked Hamas and saying, to clarify, we are not Hamas, we don't care about these guys, we want them to go, right? So that was clarified. But then that kind of pushed the Israelis to tell, basically, the West, that, do you remember when we said a few days ago we're going to go and wipe out Hamas? Well, maybe we could get the National Authority, Palestinian Authority in the West Bank to take over Gaza again, which is the fair point, because Israel doesn't want those territories. I mean, it's just going to be completely chaotic if Israel takes over Gaza. They don't want the trouble. So they said, well, maybe Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority from the West Bank could take over Gaza again. But now he's come out to say, all right, I'll do it if we talk about the two-state solution, as if it's his idea. He's making himself sound like a genius. The guy's losing a lot of support in the West Bank, we know that. But now it's about where we're going to go from here. Iran is getting weak. They just poked the bear, and by provoking also the other puppets, Syria, to start firing rockets. That's what's happening. Over the last 2 hours, we've had Syria also getting involved, which is a terrible idea. But do you know how they did it? Because they have the mainstream media in the West in their pocket. Because they're all idiots in the West. The BBC and CNN and all these guys. the way they portrayed in this scenario, Syria attacking Israel, is, well, we're actually retaliating because Israel attacked us first. Why do you think Israel sent out stuff to Syria, the Syrian border, let's just clarify, the other day? Because you had the Iranians and Hezbollah firing stuff and missiles from your territory. And Israel just retaliated quickly and then went back. Now you're attacking Israel. And now you're making it sound like you're just doing self-defense. And there are enough idiots here believing that story. How many times do we have to go through this thing? Do not believe the mainstream narrative. The whole narrative, the black and white, one-sided narrative, Jews are bad and Israel occupied, all that. It's been going on for decades. It's boring now. It's a complicated situation. Israel has made some terrible foreign policy decisions in terms of the territory as well. They've also given up too much at times when they were attacked in the 60s. Somehow no one talks about that. And then they also stayed in places they shouldn't have stayed. So to be objective. But in terms of Israel, the mistakes have been territorial mistakes. But when it comes to the nutters in Hezbollah and Hamas, they don't care about that. It's ideological. So we can get, Mahmoud Abbas is over. I just can't see this guy surviving with all the protests going on as well. If they could find a sensible-ish leader in the West Bank to start talking about territories again properly, then we could talk. Do you know how we can do that? Donald J. Trump as president. You could disagree with a lot of the domestic policies of Trump, but in terms of foreign policy, Trump was pretty spot on. North Korea, South Korea, Iran, the Paris Agreement, and of course the Abraham Accords with the Arab world and the Jews. Bring it on. Bring it on. Stop funding Iran. End that relationship with the Iranians. Be tough. And also, of course, he's got his own approach when it comes to Ukraine and Russia. So there's a lot of stakeholders involved with this. So when it comes to this, the Hamas side in Gaza, the interests from the other side, the Eastern globalists. We got the Western globalists. We know, we already talk about it all the time. But the Eastern globalists, including Assad in Syria and Khamenei in Tehran, and of course at times Putin, but he comes and goes. He sometimes just gets involved to anger the West, to prevent the Americans from interfering too much. But the guy's also psycho. They're all psychos. We know that. Just like how George W. Bush and his friend Tony Blair, when they went in with no proper plan to Iraq, like psychos, and then apparently they're the good guys. What's going on? Cosmic Dave said, Maya, you need to get them out maybe, and tell them to shut up and do the obvious, as Trump would do. But yeah, the best case scenario is, without, again, it's best not to advocate for conflict, but if we were to just analyze it, would be as fewer as collateral damage as possible. Hamas to get wiped out, negotiate with the West Bank side, and again, you need someone like Trump to be there. Get the Arab world on your side, make them friendly, because the Arab world, essentially, in reality, the main Arab world, the rich ones, all of them, including Qatar, that is a home of the Hamas leadership, even Qatar and Saudi and all these guys and Bahrain, they don't actually care. They don't like the Israeli side or the Palestinian side. They don't want any of them, especially the Palestinian side. So what we can do, because they dislike both sides, you do what Trump was doing. You bring him on, you start basically befriending them with the Jews first. You get rid of Hamas, and then you bring on the West Bank authorities, so the Palestinian authorities, whether with Mahmoud Abbas or a better leader next time, and then say, okay, let's actually talk about the territories. Just live together like normal neighbors. Then the extremists have been wiped out. Again, you can't really completely wipe out all of them because it's about the idea, it's not about the people. Once an idea is born, you can't really kill it. The Islamist ideology is always there. But in terms of the power that they have, you can reduce that. Ragnar, Maya, don't forget the UN migration replacement agenda 2040, which part that's the migration pact, obviously, that Theresa May and Boris Johnson and all these guys approved. The Tories signed up to, will be flooded with people that don't belong here. Yes, there is still time. So there is a backlash in the European Union over migration. And by the way, when we say migration, this is also about mostly the refugees. They are selling these schemes or scams from the perspective of compassion. So we have signed up to all this stuff, including obviously the UN Refugee Convention all those years ago, but the UN Migration Pact. And the idea is you have to be compassionate, right? Share the burden. But nobody from the West goes to the East. Everybody from the East comes to the West. And without exaggerating, if we do not look after the West, within the next few decades, I'm just going to be very conservative about it, because some people would say, no, within the next 10 years we'll be done. But to be conservative, within the next few decades, if we're not careful, things will change here. There will be conflicts internally because the clash of cultures, lack of resources, a lot of bad stuff. And if that happens, then we're going to have to go somewhere, as in the people within the next few decades in the West. But are they going to go to the East? Depends where East, because East is coming up. And I'm not talking about China. I'm talking about the rest of them. The countries are becoming safer again. You don't have to be top 3 world economic power, but Japan is pretty okay. South Korea is pretty okay. Singapore, obviously still linked, pretty okay. The Arab world, pretty okay. You know, there's still restrictions in Dubai, in Doha, and all those places. But when the time comes, do you think those people are going to be tolerant of the white Danish and the white Germans en masse moving there? You shall be surprised how much they're going to kick off when they see the white Europeans or the Americans. I mean, America will be fine, but white Europeans leaving Europe because it's chaotic here and go there. For the first 10 minutes, they might be excited. Like, oh, well, that's fine. It's the Europeans. You know, they are civilized. And then you're going to get all the rest of us. People forget. There are also different types of mentalities in Europe. And I'm talking about white Europeans. The people who are natives. You still got working class, middle class, educated, uneducated, a civilized person, psychotic, serial killer. You have every type of person. And then when they're going to get the hooligans and all the other guys going there, they're going to kick off. They are not going to welcome us. So all this nonsensical stuff about the UN Migration Pact and we have to share the burden, we have to help the world. Will the rest of the world help us when we are in need? I'm going to say no. Martha John says, Maya, can listen to you all night. Well, thank you very much. That sounds like you're flirting with me. It's okay. It's allowed. The Saudis have a whole council modernizing Islam, including women on the... Yeah, I mean, so with Qatar and Saudi, firstly UAE, then Saudi, then Qatar. Over time, one successful globalist interventions that we did, because I'm not in favor of globalist interventions, but especially when the Americans go into countries to liberate them and introduce democracy, based on lies. The one method that kind of worked was, since the 70s, 80s onwards, was with the Persian Gulf countries, the Arab countries in the Persian Gulf. You make them richer. By making them richer, you make them allies. And they might still have some backwards, idiotic policies. Again, you still have it in Saudi. Until recently, women couldn't drive. But by making them prosperous, by making more of the working class and poor people becoming higher in terms of wealth, in terms of education, then more people become middle class. And the more people become more middle class, the establishment, the state, can't kick them anymore. It will be awkward. And it's not the same as keeping the peasants to remain peasants. That's the best way to keep a dictatorship for a while. But that policy has kind of worked. You just make them rich. Initially, the wealth will go to the top and corruption will happen. Yes, we know that. Greed will happen. But eventually, as we have seen in UAE and Qatar and Saudi, it's not about trickle down, by the way. People are going to kick off and say, trickle down. It's not trickle down. The wealth will actually spread because everybody will actually start having businesses and jobs. So that's one way to do it. So you can actually have a situation where Saudi could technically reform itself over time, and it's happening over time. Don't expect perfection tomorrow. Don't expect Saudi Arabia to just be some sort of like very liberal, civilized country in that sense. The establishment at this point don't care. You've seen some of the interviews and some of the private conversations have been leaked from the establishments in all these places. They are scared of their own people because there's still enough people in the populace in Saudi, for example, who are essentially more conservative, let's just call them, without insulting, without saying backwards, compared to the establishment. So they can't really modernize that quickly anyway, even if they wanted to. Maya was educated and got his degree from Manchester. Very educated bloke. I'm a Mancunian too, legal secretary. Mancunian. I'm actually going to be in Manchester this weekend watching the derby, Man United and Man City. That's one of the reasons I picked Manchester to go to university was because of Old Trafford. So, whoop, whoop. Oh, I'm going to lose so many subscribers now by mentioning Old Trafford. Also, I'm literally missing the match right now. So it's probably finished now, like 5 minutes to go. Angel of Death, thank you so much. The British Empire wishes you a good night. Actually, on that note, it's been 40 minutes we'll be here, where we have been here. Let's say good night to you all. Beautiful, beautiful freedom fighters and patriots from across the world who have joined us tonight. We're going to come back tomorrow morning and the rest of tomorrow with a lot of updates. I have a feeling that the ground operation invasion is going to happen probably sometime tomorrow, according to what we've been hearing, but you never know. We'll keep you guys posted as usual. Things change very rapidly. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.